Okay.
Sorry, I needed to mute my computer, or else I would hear the feedback. Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, February 16th, Scarborough Board of Education workshop. Can we have the attendance, please?
Sure. Ms. Gannon,
She's not here.
Mr. Kelleher,
Here.
Ms. Leong,
Here.
Mrs. Lindstrom,
Here.
Mr. Mayorino,
He will be late.
Ms. Tarpinian,
Here.
Mr. Peony Huff,
Here.
Ms. Bertulia,
Here.
Mr. Shumway.
Okay. Can we, everybody please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, agenda item 4.0 is workshop and 4.1 is recording of the school board committee meetings. So we had started this conversation at our meeting when we talked about the board operating protocols. And so this was the operating protocol as it was previously, that at the time we decided to leave as is until we could discuss it further at this workshop. So we'll put it up here and then we can open conversation. I know we have some feedback from our DEI committee. I don't know if either of you want to speak to that, or Freyla or Jillian.
Do you have it? I don't want to summarize.
Has everybody read the input from the DEI committee? Let's start there. I'm not going to summarize the entire thing because there's an infographic and a bunch of other things. I'll read the text though, which is that the DEI steering committee believes that recording our meetings would prevent us from meeting our committee charge and risk the safety of student participants. And then they included a bunch of information about students and resources regarding that. They included the charge of the committee and indicated, I'm going to go down, there's text at the bottom that I'll read under the charge that says, our committee found the participation of students to be essential to the work of this charge, most especially in raising awareness and making recommendations. The students on the DEI committee represent a diversity of backgrounds and perspectives, which has been critical to increasing our understanding and expanding our imaginations for what may be possible next. It is our committee's top priority to ensure that diverse students are not discouraged from participating in this critical work due to fear and their own safety. Recording of DEI subcommittees would pose a danger to its student members. Our priority as a district should always place the safety of its students at the forefront of the mission. The following objections could be made to our request DEI subcommittees meetings not be recorded. And the responses to the students are on the school board who are recorded, or that the students are at lower risk of community bullying and harm due to the relatively low position of identity-based risk concern matrix, which is a reference to the infographic above. And the identity-based work of the DEI committee puts students on it who represent their own voices within historically excluded communities at the highest level of risk for harm. They signed up for this. These are the rules. And the response is that when we signed up for this, the meetings were not even broadcast. The meetings allow for protection of our students, both physically and emotionally. And then the other one is all other meetings are recorded. Why not this one specifically? Response: in order to create a safe and brave space for the truth of historically excluded communities, we must look at equity in the policy, not just parity. Equity takes into account the variables which affect our students, as opposed to parity, which says that everyone should be treated the same. And study after study shows that students in historically excluded communities, she lists out a bunch of historically excluded communities, are bullied, harassed, and harmed at higher rates than those that are not in historically included students. They reference a report and indicate that that has continued throughout the COVID crisis. And so that was written by Ms. Newell. She is one of the chairs of the committee and was submitted over an email. I think that's the position of the committee. I don't speak on behalf of the committee. I am on the committee. I specifically had a discussion about recording, and I was not a part of creating any of the documentation that was submitted to the committee, nor was I or Jillian. We both stepped away from that subcommittee work. So we have not participated in creating this. That is the position of the committee. as adopted by the committee.
Perfect, thank you for that. And we've had, when we were initially talking about these operating protocols, we had some emails from the public asking about recording in the opportunity to watch meetings outside of the regularly scheduled times that may or may not work with their schedules. So we've had both. I would say we've also heard from some students as well on the committee separately. So I do think we've had a variety of opinions about this. And so at this point, it's just what are our thoughts on recording? What do we want to do about it?
So. What I understand, are we talking about all committees, or are we drilling down to the DEI committee specifically?
Well, I think the DEI committee specifically is the one that tends to garner the discussion because of the students that serve on we have students that serve on that committee. So the only other one, we really could record anything except for negotiations, right? That's off the table because of legal reasons. So our options, we have a few options on the board. Or on the table, we can leave this wording as is and let it be a committee decision to record. We can say that we will make an effort to record all meetings except for the DEI committee. We can say that we will record all committee meetings with the exception of essentially negotiations that doesn't meet that last requirement. So to me, I see potentially 3 outcomes of tonight. And it's just deciding which outcomes. That's a long-winded way of saying yes. I think it comes down to the DEI committee.
I think that I think it could be stated that collectively we decided that at least the other committee meetings, other than negotiations, could be recorded reasonably. So maybe if we could at least set that aside, so we're not talking about 10 things at once.
You mean separating DEI entirely from the whole thing, just so that way?
Yeah, I mean, like if we're gonna have any, I just want us all to be talking about the
Yeah.
same stuff. I think we get lost sometimes in multiple conversations, which is easy to do. I don't know if that is appropriate or not, but it feels like that's what we're harboring around.
And I feel like the last time we had this discussion, we decided that all committees would be recorded with the exceptions of, we were going to continue the discussion on the DEI committee, but any obstacle negotiations can't be done. So that's where I thought we left it. My memory isn't always.
Yeah.
Can we can put right in there that the exclusion, so that anybody reading this would understand that, and for legal purposes.
Yeah, and so that's that, well. Actually, that's not a FOA, right? That's not.
I don't like, we have.
Yeah,
to
we
strike that
have
FOA,
to,
like that is.
yeah, we can reword this for sure.
Because it's not FOA, just.
Yeah, no, it's not, so.
Just so you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
I don't know.
can reword this. To be applicable, and. I have no problem recording the other committees, to your point. I mean, I personally, I think that we have people that are interested in, all of our committee work. My pause is that I do have this thought in the back of my head. I worry if people are able to fully participate in, committee work. I think sometimes we get wrapped up in we're on camera or we're being recorded, and is that going to impact what we say or how we behave or how we participate? And so that is something, and when I say we, I mean everybody who serves on the committee. Some of our committees have community members too.
I think specifically to DEI, the struggle that everyone has is being sensitive to students being on there and recording minors and just what young people are saying now, and it living on the internet forever.
Right.
And, you know, to their point in her letter, you know, that's grounds for more bullying later, and that's obviously not
Doxing.
something that we want for them. So I am very sensitive to that. And, you know, I think you had mentioned at the last time we spoke about this, that it's live streamed. So like what's stopping anyone at home from really
Yeah.
recording it?
That's right.
That's where I'm like, well, I struggle with this, but at the same time, it's like, well, you know what? I think maybe you don't have to live online you know, you can make the time to attend the meeting if you really, really want to. And you can just ask what happened in the meeting, other people's, what whoever attended the meeting. So I think I'm more of the side where we should just kind of leave this group to kind of be able to speak openly. And then maybe somewhere down the line, there might be opportunities to be able to record these and make change for the rest of the district. But I think as of right now, in its beginning still, everyone's just trying to find their place in it. And I don't think we're ready for it. So.
Yeah. I disagree. I understand. I'm sure everybody knows I'm disagreeing, but that's okay. I feel strongly that I completely understand what you're saying, and my heart goes out to it as well. But I'm thinking, you know, the goal of the committee is to affect policy. And am I right or wrong on that too? Is that?
No, the charge is
The
specific.
charge.
I'm happy to
Yeah.
review the charge.
Okay.
It's actually pretty discreet, and it would probably be surprising. Let me pull it back up. I can grab it. The charge of the committee. It's gotta get to a different type box. I collapsed that one. Is specifically to work with the board finance committee to assess budgetary needs, to review data collected from climate surveys, school equity audits, and listening tours, to raise awareness within the committee of work happening in the district within the boundaries of the board's existing policies, to make recommendations to the Board of Education for the development of any action plan that outlines next steps for our district, and to monitor action plan progress to ensure that action steps are in line with the actual needs. The only thing the DEI committee is able to do is make recommendations to the board. It has no other function, purpose, or agency.
Well, I guess to that point, and that's, even if they're doing that, I feel like people should be able to hear how the committee got to their point of view. And because at the end of the day, it will affect what we decide as a board. And I think I think it's a great opportunity for the students involved. I think there's a couple of things we can do. I think, Brian, maybe you suggested last time, maybe they talk at the beginning where it's not recorded, and then we can record after, but that might be a logistical nightmare. But at the end of the day, I think it gives kids the opportunity, you know, they should come in aware of what, you know, that if we do decide it's going to be recorded, that it would be recorded. So they should be aware of that. And it allows the opportunity for them to think about what they want to say. And, you know, just like I've got 2 pages of notes of what I want to say, and will I deliver it all eloquently? No. But in real life, there are repercussions for what you say and what you don't say. And, you know, not that I'm at all advocating for anybody to be bullied, because that's absolutely horrible. But it's part of life. It's part of, this is coming out wrong.
When I hear you say
Yeah,
that they can think about what they say and
Yeah.
how it comes out, I hear they can figure out how to censor themselves so they don't say the wrong thing to get themselves in trouble.
Yeah.
And I can't agree with that. I don't agree with it. I can't stand for it. I won't. Because no kid should have to censor what they don't have to think about. How am I going to say this so that I don't make myself? They're just not staying true to themselves, and they should be able to come into any situation, speak freely, not worry about anything happening. And we're here for the students and the schools. And for us to say, you know what, there's been a lot more years of people had to work around if you wanted to go to a school board meeting, a committee meeting, than just parking yourself in front of your computer at home and watching it, or, you know, downloading it later. You had to make it work for a long time.
Yeah.
And if you feel strongly enough about it, and you want this committee to work, then you march your, you know, self into a meeting and you say what you feel you have to say. And this person, you know, kids are gonna speak freely, and they can, you know, if there's gonna be interaction, they can address somebody where even if they just watch it down the road, you can't, you know, all you do is have what they said. There's no interaction, there's no, the benefit is gonna come from people actually going, the change is gonna come from people having debate back and forth. I tell you, you tell me what you think, I tell you what I think. We're just watching it and taking things out of context is not helping anybody, especially the kids. And then you say, you know, now that they know it's going to be, you know, recorded, people are gonna be like, all right, I'm out. And you're good luck finding anybody that wants to come in and tell a horrible story to put it out there and have them, you know, it doesn't have to be a horrible story, just what somebody else thinks is a horrible story. And now you've got people that got, I mean, we all know how we were all kids. Kids make fun of kids, and, you know, maybe it's worse now than it was when I was a kid. You know, but it is, because especially now where you've got that, somebody said, for out there forever.
Yeah.
And
It's more prevalent now, because the rate at which these kids are getting information, or the rate at which everyone's getting their information, it's instant. So it will live there forever. And if you want it, it's always there, and it will always live with this child who might be speaking. You know, I think it takes a lot of courage for them to stand up and say something to begin with. And even with, you know, we've had discussions ourselves about recording our community meetings aside from DEI, and just saying how, you know, if they're recorded, we might not have as robust of a discussion. But, you know, it's important that the community knows what we're saying. However, specifically to this, I think it's, you know, it's about our children's perspective and figuring out their place in the world, figuring out their place in our schools. And I think we do need to protect them as much as we can in this way. So, you know, it's not like you don't have access. You can watch it, it's live streamed. But for it to live on forever, I think that can be really difficult. And we all make poor choices sometimes. We all might have poor choices of words. And then we all might change our mind later. Like, oh, but the last time I spoke about this, I was like, yeah, I think we should record it. But putting some thought into it, reading about the different perspectives, I don't think this is the place for it.
I think it's this intersection of people's lives and wanting to help the community, and that becomes a place, especially for children, where I agree. I think we should protect them a little bit more, because when you're talking about your real life experiences with the intent to affect change, which is the hope, right? That's why we all do the work we do. That's why the kids come to do the work with the DEI committee. And it's this really, like, I don't prescribe to the idea that the community would harm them. I don't think that. But what I do think is that we're asking a very tall order of minor children. I think it's different for Yulia and Colby when they sit in these meetings and we talk about policies and we talk about things that aren't related specifically to Yulia's life experience, that aren't related specifically to Colby's life experience. What we're asking of in this meeting is for people to use the perspective that they have based on their experiences to help us affect change. And that's where it's very difficult for me to say, yes, I am with John. I would never want to censor anybody on any conversation. Right. And I don't want our kids, our students, to ever feel that they're in a position that the decision for them is I'm either going to help the district with this change, or I'm out because I can't have myself be recorded. I can't make myself available that way. And that is the decision I think we're asking if we record.
I agree with that. Like, we sit up there knowing that all of the cameras are on us, and we're talking about, like, even if I share a personal thing that happened, it's not going to be like an emotionally maybe charged moment of something that happened that was usually typically not a good event for somebody. And I think, like, you sit up there knowing that what you say is gonna be out there. But DI, I could be wrong, but I think it's more of a conversation. So, and I think in a conversation, you're gonna be saying things in a manner like that's much more like casual, maybe, or maybe you're sharing something that's much more personal to you, that like Colby and I would just never do sitting up there.
And it's one thing for, the adults in this, in any situation to go up there and speak, and they know, and that comes through experience in life. And you was like, all right, you did it the first time, and then maybe I got, okay, built up a little courage, and okay, now the second time it's gonna be, it's a little easier, little steps, and then you're like, okay, now this is old hat, I can talk to anybody about anything, because you build confidence, you know what you're saying, you know what you want to say. Kids don't have that. You've got to start someplace, and if this is the first time they get involved in anything, because it speaks to them, and then they go out and they're going to be nervous, they're going to be scared, and we need to protect that, because we all started there. And we didn't have to worry about that because of technology, at least for me. I'm not that I'm saying I'm old, but it wasn't there. And you could go and those people who were there were the ones that were hearing you. And if you wanted to share, you shared it, and you didn't have to worry about it coming back and anything that you did. And and God knows that there were situations that, thank God, that we didn't have recordings, because I know some people that would probably be unemployable because of, just silly things that people did and said, and you shouldn't, no kid should have to worry about that, ever.
Yeah, and it's to your point earlier too, it wasn't 3 years ago that you had to come in person to all of our meetings, that none of this was available. And people miraculously made it work. I mean, we didn't have Zoom, we didn't have recordings, we weren't doing we were I think we're on the TV channel, but that was. So you could watch on TV, or you had to come in person. So these options weren't even there. And Jeff and I had even had a conversation last year early on, do we go back? But the technology is there and it is available for us to use, but to what extent, I guess, is what we're trying.
And to that too, is we did it because we had to, because of the pandemic, and you didn't want people getting there and sitting. But if you want to have a debate, or have people interact, or have people get involved, making a video of a meeting, a committee meeting online, does it get you involved? Does it? I don't know if it does, or I don't think it does. I think going to a meeting, and I remember, go back to the recall. I remember being in this room and they said, okay, we have to move it to Wentworth, to the cafeteria, because there were so many people that showed up and that spoke, and people need to get involved like that. Sitting home, yeah, that's great if you want to just catch up on things, but if you want to be involved and you want to be part of a change, you have to show up. And I guess if you can do it online, that's great, but I don't think recording it for any of the meetings really gets anybody involved. Showing up gets you involved, even if it's just online, if we allow that. That's just my opinion.
I think I agree with you as far as getting involved, but I feel like being informed then creates involvement. And if you take away the informed part or take away an access point to being informed. It can either increase.
Again, it's just something that's
Yeah.
so new.
Yeah.
That it's not like, for however many years
Yeah.
before, it showed up.
Yeah.
And now, let's get a small sample of this and we're just allowing people to, just take things for granted, you know what, Dale? I don't have to go, I don't have to do anything. And then, because I know it'll be there, I can watch it. If, I never got around to watching it. People want to do something and then they never do because everybody's busy. We all have 100 other things that we could be doing. We have kids, we have, everything. And are we making it easier or harder for people to get involved?
And it's not lost on me too, the point that was made in the letter. We did start this committee asking the students and really the community to trust us. Come here, trust us, work with us. Let's work on creating a welcoming environment for all students in the community. And you can do this. You can participate privately. So to that point, that is how this committee started. We have made changes to kind of bring that committee along to where it mirrors the building steering committee so that both committees that have community members are similarly set up, right? So we have done that, but I do think I do think that, well, I personally feel a little bit trepidation that when I'm asking children and students, hey, trust us, we really want your help. We really want you to work on this with us. We really are invested in making this a welcoming district for everybody. But now I'm going to record you 15, 14, 16-year-old. I mean, we have some ninth graders in there. Like that doesn't feel the same. I can't imagine a one side saying, trust us, this is safe, this is a safe space. But at the same time saying, I'm going to record this and this is open for it's what will follow you forever. Do you know what I mean? They don't seem to jive. Those two statements don't seem to jive.
And I'll say this, I know that some kids coming up, my daughter will be in high school next year. She'll be a freshman. She'll be 13 when she gets in school for 6 weeks. One of my son's friends skipped a grade. He's in 8th grade now. He's 12. He will be 13 when he's a freshman. So this kid, if he gets involved in this, will be a 13-year-old kid that you're gonna be like, I mean, that's just, so it's, you say 15, 16, he can be 13-year-olds in there, and that's 13 is young. I mean, it's young.
No, and I do work with a population. It's very acute, at risk for suicide, high anxiety, high depression. And a lot of it has to do with these kind of social things that they have to deal with on a regular basis, not even being a part of a group where you're coming out to speak to everybody and share your business. So for any of these kids to say whatever it is that they want to say, if it's a 12-year-old, I'm pretty sure every 12-year-old knew exactly what they were doing, thought that they knew exactly what they were doing at the age of 12. But then, few years later, they're like, oh my gosh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And then now here it is recorded for everyone to see and for themselves to rewatch themselves doing it over and over again.
And who didn't at that age struggle with, I know kids struggle with a lot of things, and I think today there's a lot more to struggle with than there was when I was a kid. I mean, didn't have everything. I mean, we had 3 channels at my house, so people didn't go out that far past our homes right on Broad Turn. So we had 6, 8, and 13. We didn't have, Snapchat, Facebook, not even MySpace. I mean, with nothing. So you didn't worry about anything. And I mean, if somebody could take a picture, you had at least a week before they got it developed. Yeah.
Unless they had a Polaroid.
Yeah.
But the quality on them, yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
It's just, it's much more, there's so much more. I mean,
And it's quick.
yeah, everything's instant.
Yeah.
Do something and while it's happening, people can be putting it out there.
I mean, I think we learned that lesson recently here in the district, right, with hoaxes and threats and things that the students knew before anything had even happened, right? Like this is the world we live in now. And it does make it difficult. I do, I don't think, I don't worry about community members, but what I do know is that kids are kids and things happen at the school and, back in the day, I felt like my mom. Like you had this reprieve from school to home. You had an entire night to kind of remove yourself from a situation, and that's long gone. So the discussions, the conversations, the bullying, the harassment, whatever word you want to use, carries on throughout the night in some cases, right? So there's no reprieve. It's a constant. And we do know that the population of kids that this committee specifically speaks to are more inclined to be bullied and suffer from anxiety and suffer from depression related to the bullying and the harassment. So that is a worry, because again, we're asking kids to come forward with based on their experiences to help us. And I don't know how we record them.
For now, I just think where the committee stands right now, it's not the appropriate time to be recording until they really get a hold of what the structure is going to look like.
Or is that?
Maybe, or maybe never, right? But, it could be organized in a way where there might be an advisory group where kids can speak openly about this, that gets kind of transferred over with their information all protected already. There can be a process. I just don't think they've gotten there just yet, but I'm sure they're working on it. I think everybody's goal is to make change. I think everybody's goal is to make everyone aware of certain things. But again, it goes back to having these kids, these minors, have their information, their everything out there, living in perpetuity.
I feel like John said something before that kind of stuck with me, where the purpose of the committee is to create change. Like you see DEI committees now popping up in professional sports, you see them popping up. I have them in real estate. It's like they're in every industry now. And what's the reason for it? It is to create change, right? Because we realize that there are a lot of issues dealing within that space that, we need a lot of people to speak up for and to talk about. And when somebody's not physically at the meeting, right, you might think you're contributing, but really it's a very passive way to be involved. So how do you get involved? Well, you have to show up. I think that it's kind of interesting to me. I see this in a couple different ways, but if people want it recorded because convenience wise, it doesn't work for them for whatever reason. Well, we all have our contact information online. So if one of us attended it, they're welcome to call us if the meeting notes, for instance, aren't good enough for them to get a more thorough explanation of what had happened, because they'll see the meeting notes and then they can say, hey, can you go into this in a little more detail with me? So, I mean, if they're going to take the time to do to actually sit and watch a very long meeting, they actually could kind of speed up their process by calling, say, Freyla or somebody and say, hey, I noticed this in the notes. Can you go a little more in depth for me and tell me what this was like? And then it still allows us to keep our students, I say somewhat protected because it is still live streamed, right? But it gives them an avenue. I mean, if you want to be more than just a passive viewer and you actually care about what is happening on this committee, then you probably would take that extra step and call Freyla or call whoever else chairs the committee to say, hey, can you go a little deeper with me? Like I saw this, because that was obviously one of the complaints previously, is that the meeting notes were not detailed enough, Well, if you talk to somebody who was physically there and you weren't able to be there and you weren't able to live stream it, we're giving you avenues to get there. And then, the priority is still keeping the kids safe. I lean that way and I understand that. But then I also look at it and I'm like, well, we are still live streaming this. Like, yeah, it's still live stream. Like, I feel like that's almost the elephant in the room that we're saying we're not recording it, but we're still live streaming it. So if it is, if it's that important, I'm just playing devil's advocate, to keep these kids, their privacy and everything so protected. I mean, again, it's still live streamed. So I don't know, we want to say we're protecting them, but how much are we protecting them by doing one of both of those? I think, to me, I feel like you got to do neither of them and then you're really going to piss people off. But I'm just saying, I'm trying to play the other side of the coin just to say, I don't know how much protection we're actually providing these kids by not recording them because they're already live streamed anyway.
I think with bullying and like the harassment in particular, no student really is going to go and sit and watch a live stream of a DEI committee for a really long period of time, but they will, if they are interested in doing something not so great, they will go and find those recordings and they will find clips of students saying things that maybe they don't want sent everywhere to everyone. And I think that's kind of the difference, where the recording will be accessible to everyone at all times, but a live stream, very few people are actually going to go sit and watch.
There's also a subjective difference between somebody recording a live stream, because it doesn't have to be like your own recording. So you have to either be recording your screen most likely, or cell phone videoing the screen, versus us facilitating by uploading essentially a digital copy. I mean, there is a subject.
Yeah, I get that.
I see a subjective in those two things.
Yep.
The reason it's live stream is because the meetings are hybrid, and with the policy, that was very easy to switch the live stream on. So that's, I mean, because they weren't actually when they came back. Our first few meetings were in person only, and attendance issues really drove a move back to hybrid, just in order to get members to attend. Because we have some members who really, like, we have one member who sometimes attends from work. She live streams, it actually works. She's a parent in the district, and so, people get there how they can.
Yeah, I just like to see both sides, right? I try to do that, I do this with my kids, right? So I try to sit with them and I'm like, well, why did you do that? Well, let's look at it from the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to share that. What I started with is that's what I feel has a stronger case behind it, because what keeps us, you can pick up the phone. I mean, instead I hate to say it, but we get a lot of keyboard warriors out there, and that's what we're getting, our emails. We'd love for people to be more involved in these committees. We say it all the time. Please show up. Please give us your input. This is how we get change in this community. So, and this is how kids also in a community, in a community-based group like that, that's how those students are going to learn, is by hearing different perspectives as well. But they're not hearing the perspectives of people who are sending us emails, because they're not showing up to those meetings. They just want to watch the recording of it. At least,
Well, and I think to Yulia's point too about picking out clips,
mhm,
right? Because then you're able to remove the context from whatever was said.
mhm.
Yeah, the
entire So
conversation.
That would be a concern as well.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's settings that we can, and we can set up in Zoom so that recordings cannot happen. Is that correct?
Right, I think it's already been pointed out, though, like if somebody's really intent on recording.
Right, they're gonna use their cell phone.
They're
Yeah.
gonna do it off their own device, but there are, certainly additional steps that they would have to take to go that extra mile.
Right.
Well, right, and having a hybrid, even subcommittee meeting doesn't mean that you're live streaming it. It just means that someone can access from work, or you're having the meeting, but you're not actually either live streaming it or recording it.
Maybe then a fair happy medium would be allowing public comment. There's no public comment, is there?
There would be if anybody wanted to co-comment.
I think she's asked before,
Yeah, she's,
I
I
feel
mean,
like
yeah,
she's
I don't,
asked,
I don't.
but I don't think anybody's participated.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Alright.
I don't, if anyone
I-
shows up that they don't recognize on the screen, they always invite them to comment. I mean, it's
Okay.
not a formal community. I think we could work on some of the formal, I think we've had to teach a lot about how to format things, and I think that's still a work in progress.
I think it's also, I mean, I feel like you do, it's like I feel kind of both ways. Feel for both sides of this conversation. I do have a lot of concerns about students and this stuff living on forever. You know, I think that when stuff does come to the board, to your point, like to affect change, we will have a robust conversation about it, and we will ultimately be making the decision about whether something changes. That would be also a very public process, so I think, in that regard, the public isn't left out of, at least the final decision making, and hopefully we would have a really robust demonstration or discussion, or presentation, for any recommendation that was being made. I mean, we're not there yet. So, I'll let you know. You know,
It's gonna be a lot.
but you know, this is a really hard one.
Now, to be clear, I just. Like, I agree with everything everybody's saying. I think just my other priority maybe rises more to the top. And, you know, when we talk about, you know, show up, well, in our subcommittee meetings, I show up from home sometimes on the screen. You know, I'm not always here. So, and I probably, I don't know if it's the same for everybody, but I know that's true for me. So, you know, people do what they can. I can't always get here at 4:30 for a meeting. So, you know, I show up on the screen. So.
But that's still
people
showing
are
up.
doing- Yeah,
Just
Right.
watching it, you know, down the road
Yeah.
is not showing up. That's,
Yeah.
yes, it's watching it, but it's not showing up.
yeah.
And we
so-
don't have like, I know with our long-range plan, we just, it's all strictly hybrid. I mean, not hybrid, just online. We just Zoom and then that's all it is. There's no actual meeting place.
Yeah.
But we're all there
Yeah.
and anybody else that wants to get in can get in.
Mhm.
But, you know, watching that, you know, 4 months from now doesn't mean, who knows if those issues are even relevant anymore. So is that,
Mhm.
I mean, it's there, yeah, you can watch it, but it still doesn't get you involved. Showing, you know, even if you're not there physically, being in the meeting,
Yeah.
you've shown up.
I think that having diverse opinions on the board is vital, so
Mhm.
I appreciate that.
And I don't mind being the only one who feels this way. I still love and respect everybody.
We will likely all
So-
sit in that chair at one point or
Yeah.
another, so it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it doesn't bother me one bit, so that's all right.
Well, I think a lot of the concern lies with like how some things are in, how curriculum is influenced by these committees. And I think that's really where the fear is. And it's something that we've actually brought up in our curriculum meeting to just kind of, let's talk about what is available to our families. For them to see, so that way, maybe we're not, this committee recording might not be as scary as a thing. I think that's where it all lies, honestly. I think we have to focus our attention there instead of this particular group that's influential, yes, but we want their influence. We want them to talk, we want them to be involved. And if recording it is going to be detrimental to it, then I don't think we should. We want as much involvement as possible. And, you know, like you said, even if you're logging on and you're going in online while it's happening live, you are showing up. We've at least provided that way, that avenue, for people to get involved.
Yeah, I just think, this be my final point.
You can speak as much as you want. It's great. It's good to hear.
No, I just, I think I've said this before as well, that I think a lot of the topics discussed in this committee are very socially and relevant to today, and a lot of people have vested interest in what's being discussed and what's going on, and it's a lot of hot topics, and I just I have a hard time saying it's okay to not get those discussions out into the public square. But again, I do understand if there was something we could do for the kids to allow that discussion and allow it to be out there for the public to hear and understand, but protect the children, I am 100% for that. If there's a way to do both,
Yeah.
that would be wonderful.
Would look like, but
Yeah, I don't know either. I'm not the creative one. I'm an accountant.
So. Yeah, I mean. I do feel also a little bit, I mean, I continue to struggle with. What the possibilities would be, but. We have standards for our community committees. We have to be very specific if we're going to just that carve out. I don't want that to trickle down onto other things that go, and then there's, an element of fairness, but that goes on both sides as well. I just want to make sure that when we have this up there and we vote on it, we're clear on what carve out there is, what carve outs there are. And make it, it should be clear that the committees otherwise should be completely available in every way possible. We want that kind of engagement, and for a lot of those other little, the little, 3-4 member committees, it's we don't get a lot of people showing up that they might want to watch later, and I think that's huge for them. I mean, for that to be available, and I understand what you're saying about whether that might stifle some of the work, but we as adults, we need to be prepared with our words as well. I mean, I don't want to be thrown out on whatever crazy show.
Yeah, and I think that, yeah, you're right. Like, we have to prepare ourselves. We have to be willing, kind of when you run and you sit in the chair, you kind of know that's what you're doing, right? And that expectation that you're going to prepare comments and prepare for meetings and be willing to speak up is a part of the role. So yeah, you're right. And to your point, we did have a community member reach out and ask questions about what happened. So exactly what you were saying, that actually did happen. It was really great, right? She sat with Jillian and was able to ask her questions in more detail about the DEI meeting agenda. And it sounded like it was from the feedback she sent back, that it was a very positive meeting, and she was able to really get her questions answered exactly how you're suggesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right, dialogue, relationship building, that's what community is all built on. So not just watching something and not getting involved, right? Like, it's nice to be informed, but if you want to be involved for a committee that exists for the purpose of change, you got to show up, even if it's afterwards, right? And at least that showed that person took the initiative, because you could tell they genuinely cared. Then I didn't know that, but I think that's great.
Yeah, that was a great meeting. I would do that sometimes.
And we can look at it this way too, something we can all want to have it be the perfect solution for everybody. Rarely has that ever happened. So, it's gonna be uncomfortable for some people, like, I'm gonna have to go. It's not gonna be available to me, and I can't make this, so I don't have the capacity to do, whatever it is. I have to show up and be there or get online. I mean, make it pretty easy for people to show up. And think in this situation, It's not gonna make everybody happy, but we're not, can't make everybody happy. There's no situation that we can. People are always gonna want, there's gonna be people on each side. And we have to take and look at, okay, who are we worried about in this situation? Worried about the kids.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody should be worried about. Whether or not they're at home, they're, wherever they are, parents, if it's faculty, if it's staff, if it's, your friends, your relatives, whoever, townspeople should worry about, all right, you know what? I understand how this is difficult for kids. Here's what I can do. I can show up. And, sometimes you have to, be part of the community. You have to make sacrifices to do, because the kids are doing that. They're putting themselves into potentially into a situation that's very, very difficult for them. And we don't need to make it harder and try to, make everybody happy. You make it easier for them, and other people will have to adjust to what they want or what they need. I mean, that's how it's been done forever. I mean, yes, technology has changed things, but it's not always for the better.
It's a lot to ask our kids to like, suck it up, guys.
Yeah, no,
What's
I don't-
happening? It's the adults. can
Yeah,
suck
well,
it up.
exactly.
Deal with it.
Sometimes it's just, there's no answer for everyone. You just, here's where it's gonna be. You want to be part of it. This is what you're gonna have to do.
Well, and I think where we do, because to your point, we can't make everybody happy with any decision we make. We always are going to have people that are not, but what we can do is listen to all sides of the conversation and listen to all perspectives. And yes, even when we have one that is like on the chair by herself, right? We make the space here, that this is part of our teamwork, right? And making that space safe for everybody to contribute and have a say, right? And I think that's what we can do. In that sense, we invite people to participate to their ability. We ask them to contact us at any time. Our information is all out there. We ask them to come in and speak publicly. So yes, I think that's where we can, and we can invite people along the process, I guess, is sometimes that's.
Right, we can't give you this, but we can give you this, 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 and this.
And here's why. This is our thinking. Yeah.
Well, and honestly, I think just having this discussion shows how we prioritize things like this committee and this topic and the community. And when they want to say things, that we will listen to you, right? It might not always end up the way that you want it, but yeah, continue to bring things to us, because we're saying this right now a lot with the building committee, right?
Yeah.
Like, bring things to us so we know. It's no different in this situation. We want people that we might not always agree with things and we might not have the best solution, but I think it's important to continue to challenge ourselves and have people challenge us,
Yeah. All right, so it's about almost 6:30. So do we want to start rewording this? I'm gonna type.
I'm not worse. So.
Just put a period after stream, whenever possible.
What? Okay, so we are good with the first sentence. We agree that committee chairs will act in good faith to schedule meetings which can be attended by the full committee. I'm gonna take as well as and say and relevant staff.
Yeah.
Okay. Committee chairs are responsible for providing agendas to be published on the website. I would like this sentence strengthened.
Do you want to say at least 3 days in advance?
Does that sound good to everybody?
Just want to set the
Just
expectation.
because it goes with our
Yep.
policy. Oh, website.
Extra 6 hours.
To the website at least 3 days before, at least 3 business days. Is that right, Kelly? 3 business days? I want to make sure the wording's okay. 3 business days prior to the meeting. Okay. What is the next one? All committee meetings will be recorded and or live streamed whenever possible in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act clause.
Put a period after possible.
And not say anything about law.
I,
I mean,
No,
not
that
even that
law is
law,
like-
but
that was making me crazy.
yeah,
I
like our
get it.
applicable laws or,
Well, it's not possible if it's illegal.
oh, I see what you're saying.
It's theoretically possible, but we're not like gonna break the law.
Right.
Like base expectation.
Yeah.
Is the rest of the wording how we want to leave it?
Well, how about whenever possible and in accordance with? So it's like two things. Because it makes it sound like it's whenever possible in accordance with. So in accordance with that, then I think the DEI committee meeting would be recorded because it's not legal to record that, right? Is that?
Well, I think what I was thinking was to say all committee meetings will be recorded and or live streamed whenever possible, period.
Oh, nothing. That was
Just
to do
nothing,
with-
yeah, nothing with that.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not the right law,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
which is my first like issue with it. But like the second thing is there could be other, we don't want to reference a specific law. Like I don't have the laws memorized. No attorney does, but there are multiple things that would factor into that, like for the negotiations committee, like I know it's not
That's just.
that law. I
Yeah.
can't say the one it is, but it's that one. That's what I know.
that
I know that one well enough. And the thing is, like, there's federal law, there's FOIA, there's also main law, which is FOA. There's different, don't get me started. This is not a wheelhouse to go down. There are multiple laws that are impacted. We can't cite them all. And we shouldn't try.
Right.
We will now.
I mean, the goal of recording is engagement, correct? We could say that.
I think, yeah, again, whenever possible, then it's. I think that's specific enough, so.
But maybe what you're saying can go to the top, because really the goal is community participation, right? That's essentially what we're trying to get at with our meetings.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a good starter sentence or something to that,
Yeah, yeah.
that what you're saying, like, it's a good point, something to that effect. So how?
We have a debate, so the number of spaces between and sentence and start of the meeting.
It's functions, man.
Oxford comma while we're at it. Kelly will clean it up, don't you worry.
Roll everything over.
Oh. Okay, so really, what are we?
Should there?
You
be-
wanna, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, should there be a sentence at the end talking about when minutes should be due?
I did wonder that after when we. took
Just
some
because
agendas.
that deals with, the people who cannot see it, they've mentioned that they will go and read the minutes, so, at the very least, we should make sure they're up in a timely manner, I feel like.
Okay, so what do we feel,
Do there always have to be minutes or only if it's not recorded? It's one of my questions.
there,
3 minutes, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Always.
That was my question to you
Yeah.
the other day. I wasn't
Yeah.
sure if, because we recorded it, if we still needed minutes, so I submitted them anyway. but-
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, we would still. Post them.
Was the committee chairs are responsible for providing agendas to be published to the website at least 3 days in advance. And meeting minutes within 10 days of the meeting. Something like that.
Yeah, is it 2 separate paragraphs? So-
Arbitrary.
Committee chairs are responsible for providing agendas to be published to the website at least 3 business days prior to the meeting. Period, and then a second sentence, I
Could be a
think.
second sentence. I was just grouping it in the same Because you want to assign it to somebody. Ideally.
Committee chairs are
And give
also
them a due date.
responsible for.
I mean, the committee can ultimately decide who's going to take minutes and who will be responsible for something. I guess I don't know if we need to commit to a specific person.
I think we need to commit it to a specific person. If they delegate it, it's fine, but we need someone we need to call to be like, dude, your minutes aren't done yet.
Right, and who's gonna be responsible for sending it to Kelly?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just think making it clear, so you give one person the responsibility, they can delegate. Like, it's not like the chairs have to take the meeting minutes and submit them. The chairs have to make sure it's done.
How many days after do you think is acceptable for meeting minutes?
Fortnite.
What is that, pray tell?
14 days. It's 14 days. Although it would be cool to have Fortnite in our protocol.
Kids today.
Can we figure that out? When is it
Hey,
due?
what's that have to do with Fortnite?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a video game.
No, I said 8 Fortnite.
So what do we think 14 days is too much? Do we think that's
10.
I kind of feel
5
like
to 10.
14 days might be a little bit.
Yeah.
I think 14 days is very generous
Yeah.
/ borderline. Procrastinating.
I was kind of thinking there.
Yeah, 14 days later, we should be making the minutes.
I was kind of thinking, wait, but.
Yeah, I was wondering about a week as well.
Go back.
It's not about the-
I think 7 days.
So that's likely you.
Yeah,
oh, that's
did you
true
forget?
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we think a week?
Yeah, I think 7 days is fine.
We think that week feels good?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're right, yeah.
Meeting minutes. With 7 days. 7 days. Okay, so here's the sentence. Committee chairs are responsible for providing agendas to be published to the website at least 3 business days prior to the meeting and meeting minutes within 7 days of the meeting. That's a lot of words. I think that's accurate.
Business days versus 3 days, is that 3 business days, or is that 3 regular calendar days?
So the 3 business days are business days. The 7 days, yeah, because that's written in our policy, the 7 days.
5 business days if you wanted to, I guess.
Yeah, do you want to do 5 business days so it's equal? Like the wording is the same?
No, I think you should just put 7 calendar days. If that's what they have a week, just
7 calendar days
Just say 1 week.
within 1 week, within 1 week.
because it's potential, there will be potential for a holiday to pop in or
Yeah,
some kind of day to throw that off, so.
right. Okay, so I do want to go back to Jillian's idea about that sentence at the front of the paragraph here, because I like that.
At the very top of our board operating protocols is a purpose statement. You want to add it to the purpose statement,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
because I think there's a good place for it.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
Okay, so the purpose statement reads, for the purpose of enhancing teamwork among members of the board and between the school board and the leadership council, the members of the Scarborough School Board publicly commit to the following operating protocols.
I think we could add a third group there, so.
Yeah.
Between members of the board, between school board and the leadership council, and then something about fostering community engagement.
Yeah.
Something like something,
And
it's gonna be really wordy.
And with, and,
But-
encouraging. With a goal, with a goal.
Intention.
I'm pencil a lot.
Okay. I'm sorry, I lost my document, so you're gonna have to tell me again when I get myself together here. Okay, so I'm gonna leave the operating protocol alone for a second. I'm gonna go to the purpose statement. So for the purpose of enhancing teamwork among members of the board. I think community is missing, right? I don't know if
Yes.
you said that. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Do you want to say teamwork or do you want to say engagement?
Oh. Or teamwork and engagement.
Better.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. And engagement among members of the board.
Community.
So should it be members of the board, comma, leadership council, comma? Community, does that encompass everybody?
Friends with cohorts. Sidekicks.
With everybody. The purpose of enhancing teamwork and engagement among members of the board. How do you guys feel? Is it leadership council or is it leadership?
Can you read it again the way
Yeah.
that it is right now?
Yeah, for the purpose of enhancing teamwork among members of the board and between the school board and the leadership council, the members of the Scarborough School Board publicly commit to the following operating protocols. I might be able to share my screen and put this up. How about that?
Yes.
It was like,
Yeah.
I have to.
Not very good.
Yeah, because then it would-
Community in there somewhere, that'll cover everybody in.
Yeah,
Oh.
I mean, we do have a goal. Of that. I've gotten really good at this.
Jeff was lost when you were missing class. I had to nudge him one point. I was like, next slide.
Yeah.
Move this self.
All
Indeed.
That's
Just now.
It was a win. You only had to do it once. I'm concerned.
All right, there it is. So. I'm thinking, so if we update that first sentence for the purpose of enhancing teamwork and engagement among members of the board. Comma, is it leadership council or is it?
This sentence is really weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because I think you take out that, take out the in between.
Yeah, that's a lot of, we're very.
Right, like we don't need the in
Words
between
here.
school board and the leadership, it's just the members of the board, comma,
Leadership council.
yeah, is it?
The community.
I'm not sure, is leadership council referring to the leadership team at central office? Like, do we,
Leadership council is all building leaders.
yeah, and the, yeah, and
My
the central
assumption-
office.
And again, maybe my memory's not serving me correctly, but my memory on this is that when these were originally written, it was with the intention of fostering a positive relationship between the school board and leadership in the district, right?
Mhm.
So that people would be working in unison together versus, maybe some less positive practices that had happened.
That makes sense based on how it's worded.
Right.
Yeah. So do we just leave it as, for the purpose of enhancing teamwork and engagement among members of the board, leadership council, and the community?
There's too many words.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
Let's break
many
this
words.
into the two goals. So one of the goals is that teamwork is a fascinating choice of words here. We want efficient board functioning.
So maybe you just start with a positive statement.
Yeah.
You know,
Like, I want to be on your team, trust me, but like, that's not what it's
Two.
about.
...
Yes.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, just like break it, like, I think we need to break it apart. Like, we need to, like, the purpose of the protocols, the operating protocols is that we can operate the board. That's the actual purpose.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
I love teamwork. I love playing on teams, but this is a weird word here.
Yeah.
so a priority for the board, is that what you said?
I was just thinking about it like that is one giant run-on sentence.
Yes,
So I was
yeah.
trying to kind of offer up what you were talking about, Frayla, which is, how do you just clarify, like what's the why underneath all of those things?
Yes.
Like, why do you have all of those things under there, right? So
Bullet points?
Yes,
Right.
or numbers.
Yeah.
Like one, efficiently running the board.
Yeah.
That's the purpose of the protocols. And
Yeah.
then secondary goals.
Right, your purpose for these protocols might be different than a prior board's.
And it might include fostering teamwork amongst like leadership. Again, the leadership council seems really specific here, leadership and the board of ed. And fostering community engagement. Like, those are
Yeah.
all purposes, but I don't think we can
Lump it into one.
make a
sentence.
Frankenstein sentence, because this sentence is not impactful.
Scratch the first half of it, to say the members of the Scarborough School Board publicly.
Okay, so Jenna's suggestion. Jenna's suggestion is to,
But in one-
500-word essay,
There
you
you
don't
go.
have enough words yet.
Yeah.
I had the power for a moment, did you see that?
Yeah.
You did, you did.
Me too. Oh, yeah.
Jenna's suggestion is to start with the members of the Scarborough School Board, like that sentence.
Yeah, scratch the first half entirely, and then,
Or just the Scarborough School Board, right? Because that includes the
or,
members.
right, the Scarborough School Board publicly commit to the following operating protocols.
Yes, that is.
And then that would be it.
That's why you're here.
Okay, but what if we word that, are we losing the two underlying reasons?
Well, we talk about it in line 2, how we're gonna work with the superintendent, other board leadership.
Oh, that's true.
So we're just being redundant. We say it again.
So then do we go back to 13 and we put in something about the community there?
Well, 3 is direct input from stakeholders in decision-making process.
Okay,
So maybe you're just opening it with the members of the Scarborough School Board commit to the following.
Right.
Yeah, then that's what
Yeah.
Jenna said.
Seems to clean it up.
Because you've got so much listed underneath.
You know, we don't have to try to say it all.
Yeah, number
for-
3 says
When we're
it, yeah.
gonna say it all again.
Right, then it's not. redundant.
Yeah, I think number 3 says exactly what we're trying to
Mhm.
communicate. So no point in doing it a second time.
It wasn't so good after all.
I mean, we can't put a purpose statement, it is redundant, I guess.
Yeah.
Really, you opened a can of worms here.
And you think 3 gets across?
I can get like really myopically focused on stupid words, like teamwork, where it shouldn't be. Like written nothing.
But you want that, you want clear and concise, like.
Yeah,
say
yeah,
what
that-
you
that
hear,
definitely
yeah,
cleans it
that's
up.
what you say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My only concern is how do we, and again, I'm probably going down a rabbit hole, nobody else is visiting but me. But how do we know that those, like number 3, stakeholders includes community members?
Footnote. Put it down at the bottom, and say stakeholders to include.
I mean, I think.
Hey,
Or do you know, like, is it, I mean, am I the only one that's would go down that? I might be the only one.
No, I think it
I mean,
lists
they elected
everything
us,
there.
they're part of the, I don't know, that's how I look at it. They have a stake in the games.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I feel like they elected us, so they have a stake in the game, like I,
Oh, so you think?
but
it's-
that could be my perception of how I view it. I don't know if, public views that differently.
Which line are you reading now?
No, I'm just using the word stakeholder.
Number 3 up there that has stakeholders in it. If we're saying that's the one that encompasses the community members, my question is it clear in our operating protocols that we want the community to participate with us?
Well, I think that's what number 3 says, but we can
think
certainly,
so.
you could strengthen it by adding, foster community engagement. If the
Yeah.
board values direct input from stakeholders in the decision-making process, comma, will facilitate receiving feedback when the full board or committee feels it's needed, comma, and will foster community engagement.
And the community is everybody.
Okay, you're gonna have to tell me, again, but hold on, we'll input.
Can you just type it?
Copy and paste is my friend.
Where did I direct input from stakeholders?
No, it's so hard to type what other people are saying.
The decision making process.
Yeah, definitely more visual versus I can see what's changing.
Receiving, okay, receiving feedback.
So the board values direct, so I deleted and made it a comma right after process. So the board values direct input from stakeholders in the decision-making process, comma, will facilitate receiving feedback, meetings and or forums, etc. when the full board or committee feels it is needed, comma, and will seek to foster community engagement.
I like it.
Guys like, yeah. Everybody feel good about that?
I've never felt better than anything else.
Okay, so board operating protocol 3 would read, well, let me start at the top. The purpose statement would just say the Scarborough School Board publicly commits to the following operating protocols. Board operating protocol number 3 would be the board values direct input from stakeholders in the decision-making process, will facilitate receiving feedback, parentheses, meetings and or forums, and will seek to foster community engagement. And then board operating protocol number 13 is we agree that committee chairs will act in good faith to schedule meetings which can be attended by the full committee and relevant staff. Committee chairs are responsible for providing agendas to be published to the website at least 3 business days prior to the meeting and meeting minutes within 1 week of the meeting. All committee meetings will be recorded and or live streamed whenever possible.
Thank you.
Okay. I guess I could show that too, and then you guys can make sure that everybody's. For the visual learners. Yep. There you are.
Can somebody strike that?
I don't love to be published in number 13. Responsible for providing agendas.
Yes, just take out the
Just, you
publisher.
don't have to say to be published.
Yeah,
on the
we
site,
know that's what
right?
happens to them, but
It's just given to us within 3 days. That's somebody else's work, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Provide, we'll take out to the.
to the website.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Providing agendas, okay. How's that?
Yeah. That's cleaner.
Feel good? Feel good? Any more final comments? All right, so it is 6:50, so we can take about a 10-minute break before we start the meeting. Yeah.
Maybe, or maybe like the third stage. Third stage.
Good evening and welcome to the Scarborough Board of Education Thursday, February 16th, 2023 business meeting. Can we have the attendance, please?
Sure. Ms. Gammon? Here. Mr. Kelleher?
Here.
Ms. Leong? Here. Mrs. Lindstrom?
Here.
Mr. Mayorino?
Here.
Ms. Turpinian?
Here.
Mr. Peony Huff?
Here.
Ms. Bertulia?
She's been excused.
And Mr. Shumway.
Here.
Perfect. Thank you. Would everybody please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Perfect. Agenda item 4.0, excuse me, are adjustments to the agenda. Are there any adjustments this evening?
No adjustments.
Right. Agenda item 5.0 is public comment on agenda items. Is there anybody wishing to make public comment this evening? Yes, come on up. So I'll go over the rules really quickly. We just ask that you identify yourself by first or last name, and then I would recognize you to make public comment. From there, you have 3 minutes to do so. And please address your comments to me as the chair.
My name is Mariah Perrick.
Great, thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and many thanks to the school board and town council for adding the safe storage resolution to the agenda tonight. My name is Mariah Perrick, and I'm a pediatric nurse and mother of 2 children, ages 3 and 6. I was raised here in Scarborough, Maine, and now have 1 child in the school system. I'm standing before you today in firm support of a safe storage resolution for the town of Scarborough. While the school has done a remarkable job of putting safety measures in place to protect our students against gun violence, I believe the onus is on us as parents and as a community to make sure guns do not get into the hands of our children in the first place. The beauty of a safe storage resolution is that it is nonpartisan. It is not pegging gun owners against gun haters. It is simply a way to ensure that we continue educating the families in our town about safe storage laws in the state of Maine in hopes of preventing a tragedy like the many we have seen in the news recently. I feel that no matter where your values lie, we can all agree that we never want to see a headline tagging our children as the victims of a school shooting. In 2021, the state's first firearm safe storage law, LD 759, was passed, making it a crime if gun owners do not secure loaded weapons in the presence of children under the age of 16. The ideal way to store guns is in a lockbox and separate from ammunition. A safe storage resolution would make it mandatory for schools to send information about this law home to parents each year in any way they'd like, for example, via email, hard copy, or during open house. Parents would then sign a form acknowledging receipt of the information. It is the hope that with an understanding and signed contract, parents will work even more diligently to protect their children and others in the community. Additionally, sending home this information about safe storage laws could lend an opportunity to discuss gun safety with our children, which is becoming increasingly important. I'd like to end with this. I have seen with my own 2 eyes the effect that gun violence has had on children. As a pediatric nurse, I have triaged many calls and read many notes detailing the increased anxieties students face when bombarded by shooting after shooting in the media. The pediatric mental health crisis in this country is astounding. I hope that we as a community can continue to reassure our children that we will do everything in our power to protect them. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to make public comment this evening? Seeing none here and none online, I will close public comment. Agenda item 6.0 is the Spotlight Award recognition. So for this, I will turn it over to Jillian.
All right. So our February Spotlight Award winner is Cheryl Callahan, and she is in the audience today. Cheryl manages several positions at central office. She's an administrative assistant to the director of curriculum, and administrative assistant to central office, and in charge of recruitment and hiring, pro-tracks, and event management. She has a lot of wonderful things that people said about her, but first we'll find out who nominated her. So Maria, who has since left the district, but she left a lot of really nice things to say, and so I'll read those. Let's see. So what Maria had to say is Cheryl's the master of multitasking. At any point in the day, you'll see her organizing an event for staff while putting together 10 interviews for multiple departments. She works diligently across the district with absolute efficiency. Cheryl's a wealth of knowledge and a true asset to the organization. Her constant hard work and dedication doesn't go unnoticed by her peers and those who count on her for every day in the collective mission of supporting students at Scarborough Public Schools. Also, we had a number of things come through. We heard that she is professional, approachable, helpful, organized, cheerful, supportive, and friendly. And there were, it is very clear that Cheryl does a number of things and in central office, but most importantly were that she's always helping out. She is a problem solver. She is positively communicates, and she has endless patience, which that is a huge asset. Coordinates schedules, and she tracks all kinds of software applications. She orders for schools. She does attendance for teacher recertification and much more. So with that said, I would like to present Cheryl with an award and a little gift. If you'd like to come up. Did you want to say anything? Either Monique or no? Put you on the spot?
While it's all been said, I would like to say that everything up there is true and then some.
Oh, thank you.
Great. Very much.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Cheryl.
Thank you.
For any of us who have ever had those of us who've had the experience of serving on an interview committee, we know the amount of work you put in just on that one task alone. And so that times all of your other tasks, it's very impressive. Very, very impressive. Thank you. Are there any other comments? All right. Agenda item 7.0 is the gun violence prevention and safety storage resolution. So we just heard public comment on this specific issue or discussion item. This is on the agenda tonight as a discussion item for further for us to discuss for further action down the road. So you all are in receipt of materials from regarding the safety storage. And again, it's an education campaign with the idea of educating parents on how to safely store their weapons in the home and how to have conversations with their children. So the resolution discussion really, we received an email from a community member and we've discussed it among the boards a little bit, but it also was sent to town council for discussion at their level. Because the reality is the town council owns the school buildings. And so really trying to wade through who does this resolution. Is it a joint resolution? Is it one body versus the other? And ultimately the town council discussed and decided they would like to move forward with a joint resolution between the school board and town council. So if we, our discussion tonight is really centered around, do we want to do that? Do we want to have a joint resolution with town council? And if so, what would happen is it would be written, they would approve it and adopt it at their meeting, and then we would approve and adopt it at our meeting the following day. So I'll open the floor for discussion.
Well, I think the thing that struck me is Chief Holmquist wrote a really eloquent letter in support of this resolution, noting that gun violence has recently become the leading cause of death in children in our country, sadly. And I think that was reminded recently of the events in Michigan, most recently this week, but of many countless other events. So I think it is important. It also is a new law, as very happy I've had the education, but I was aware that this new law had come into effect. And so I think it is important that gun owners, of which Maine has a proud tradition of owning firearms, understands the new law and is able to comply with it, because that's also really important that we make sure that kids are safe, that people are in compliance, and that they can enjoy whatever weapons that they do have at home, but they do it in a responsible manner.
Thank you, Prela. Go ahead, Julie.
No, go ahead. No. Okay.
Are you ready? Are you ready, Julie? I'm sorry, were you looking to speak? I
No.
misunderstood. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you you were waiting. for that.
Freyla said it very well. Ditto.
Yeah, and I do think the education piece is good. I was just trying to pull up really quickly the memo. Here it is. I can read it really quickly. What he says is, I am writing this memorandum to express the Scarborough Police Department's support for the Be Smart toolkits to be distributed by Scarborough schools to parents for the purpose of further education on properly securing firearms inside the home. According to the New England Journal of Medicine, in 2020, firearm-related injuries became the leading cause of death for children ages 1 through 19 years of age. Ages 1 through 19 years of age in the United States. These deaths include suicides, homicides, unintentional firearms discharge, and undetermined factors. The Maine Center for Disease Control and Prevention indicated that there were 154 firearm-related deaths in Maine in 2020, with 86% of those deaths being suicide. 13 of the suicide deaths in our state in 2020 were of children and young adults between the ages of 10 and 24. The Be Smart Toolkit initiative, coupled with an awareness of the warning signs of a person in crisis, could help in preventing a tragedy at home or school. The daily observances by our students, faculty, staff members, parents, and school resource officers remain vital in preventing a firearm-related incident from impacting the lives of our whole community.
I think even if everybody in the community 100% already did everything the way they absolutely should, what's the harm in giving information, making sure people are, it's always better to be proactive than reactive. This is my point of view.
And I took an opportunity to look through the toolkit, and what I liked is, in addition to the safe storage education pieces that were in there, there is also pieces about talking to your children, including one I hadn't even thought of, when you have a young child babysitting in the home, how to teach them to ask questions about weapons. Are they babysitting in a home where weapons are available? And that is a conversation piece, quite frankly, I don't know that I had thought of having with a young child, but it's really an important one as well. So the education kind of spans this broad spectrum of information, but to your point, yeah, are we ever in danger of over communicating? I'm not sure that the answer to that is yes. All right, so are there any other comments, suggestions? I'm sensing that there's support for this, for doing this joint resolution. Is that a assessment that's?
Yes, I fully support that. And I just to be clear, the resolution will be drafted between the board and the council.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we would both approve it at our next, I'm not sure if it'd be the next meeting or the meeting thereafter, because it has to get written, but it would be approved by both bodies at their respective meetings. Okay, so if the consensus is yes, then I will move forward and let John and know that the school board is in favor.
Yeah, I would support it.
All right, perfect. Thank you. All right, agenda item 8.0 is new business. 8.1 are the meeting minutes of February 2nd, 2023. Do I have a motion to approve as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Yeah. All in favor? Very good. It's unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 8.2 is the Scarborough High School Infinity Credit Union donation.
Right, so I'll read the memo that was enclosed in the packet from Christina Gerber, our high school social worker. So Infinity Credit Union strives to make a difference in the communities that we serve. Every Friday, we can wear jeans for $2. This money goes towards our Ending Hunger campaign. This year, we had extra funds left over and were asked by the branch where we would like to donate to. Infinity in Scarborough has partnered with the high school for our annual giving tree, as well as teaching a course on credit to the alternative education students. We chose Scarborough schools to receive our gift this year, and also noted that 2 of our staff are alumni of Scarborough. Caitlin Smith, the branch operation manager, graduated in 2012, as well as Billy Keller, who's the membership relationship officer, graduated in 2016. This year, we're proud to donate $2,000 to the Scarborough schools.
Very good. Do I have a motion to approve the Infinity Credit Union donation?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right, I'll just say thank you for your generosity. It's really nice to recognize that partnership in this way. All right, all in favor? All right, it's unanimous, and thank you again. All right, agenda item 8.3 is the first reading of the 2023-2024 proposed school calendar. So I'll turn this over to Freyla.
Thank you. So the policy committee had its meeting earlier this month. And we did we went over the draft of the calendar. It looks remarkably similar to the calendar this year. It's there's not a lot of changes. It doesn't change any of the big weeks. So that was all. I hope you all had ability to look at it really briefly. Again, it's pretty standard. It's in line with some of the things that we have to do. A couple of the days that are required for staff days at the beginning that are part of our contracts. It's all in compliance with that. The only piece that really is, I think, of note, it would be the snow day discussion, which is not actually in the paperwork, which is currently this year we have, I'm going to call it traditional snow days, so that if we use a snow day, we then add on to the end of the year. So our original last date was the 14th. We've had 2 snow days, so that's moved up to the 15th and the 16th. If we have another snow day, that'll continue to be added on until we complete our snow days. And then we will then have summer break. This has caused that's traditional. So it's an indeterminate year end, depending on the weather. I think we all like to depend on in New England. There is another model, which is sort of, you can make all your snow days remote, which has been floated, given that the school very successfully did remote school days in the past. There's capability of doing that. And then there's something that's kind of a hybrid, which is where the policy committee kind of landed. And that is, given the school year usually ends in the middle of the week, adding on a set number of snow days to bring us to an end date that's determined. So for example, this year, if Wednesday is the last day, we would have 2 official snow days. So the first 2 snow days would then be added to the calendar as a traditional year. However, if we had a 3rd or future snow day, those days would be remote, so that the learning would happen on the date that would formally have been a snow day. It would require teachers to prepare lessons in advance, maybe send some materials home in advance in case this happened. But what it would do is give everybody, students, staff, parents, administration, a final date for the school year. So you know that no matter how many days it snows, that this Friday, likely would be a Friday, would be the last day of the year, no matter what. And then if we use the snow days, unless the snow days weren't used, and then it would end that original day. But after that day, then it would be the remote days. So you would, the reason I think we landed on that is it gives students the traditional snow day experience when it's snowing outside and they get to wake up and do their snow day thing, which is, sleep in. And they go outside. And they have the snow day
It's a little
experience.
developmental, depending on the age, probably.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I have young ones and they don't always sleep in. But it also gives parents and students a final date that we know for planning purposes for summer, so that if staff have new jobs in the summer or other opportunities they want to take on, if parents are planning summer experiences, there's not this question of hedging your bets on those last few days about what's going to happen. We would know that the school day would end, the school year would end this date, the snow days would then end this date, and then everybody could make their plans. But there are benefits and drawbacks. It does require some planning ahead of time for the remote days. It requires, it's kind of a middle ground. The board did receive one email that suggested this model, which was actually after our policy meeting, so it was nice to see that there's at least one person out there who's in support of this. But that was where we landed for the snow day policy, which I think is the bigger discussion, other than the calendar, which is very traditional. It looks like it always has, as long as I've been in the district. That's what I got.
I would just add too, that we did do a survey on that very proposal last year, both to the staff and parents or families as well. So including students, I believe. And so we had, and it was between 80 and 85% support of the 3 snow days and then remote days if there was any further days. And that was actually last year how we ran it. And then of course, Murphy's Law was like, we'll get the 3 snow days and then that'll be it. And so all the staff will be ready for the remote days and then we just won't have that 4th day. And that's exactly what happened. But anyway, that aside, there was pretty widespread support for that idea from last year. And just one thing to note for this draft calendar, the Leadership Council is recommending that the early release day that's in October change from the 11th or be moved from, right now it's on the 11th on this draft, to the 18th. And that's just so that it doesn't conflict with PSATs that are being given at the high school on the 11th.
And that takes away that they actually would have Monday as a holiday, Tuesday as school, Wednesday as an early release. So by moving it, you might lose that disruption as well.
Right. Yeah, so we just recommend that early release day get moved from the 11th to the 18th.
So we need a proposal to amend the calendar. So. Well, let me open discussion. Is there any discussion on the calendar as is first, and then you can make the amendment? Yes, I made a motion, but now we're on a discussion. And so if there's an amendment to be offered, now would be the time to offer the amendment.
I just want to first ask, is anyone from leadership going to be discussing this? To kind of talk about the calendar like they did last year, to kind of give more information about how the appointments worked?
Oh, yes, we did have a very robust conversation around, are you talking about communicating to parents?
Yes, so I think last year there was a pretty lengthy discussion, or just a presentation, I think, by Kelly Crosby about why the K-5 appointments are really important. As a teacher, those appointments are important. It gives teachers the opportunity to meet with incoming students, assess them, get them, know what they need to kind of prepare for the year. And I know that especially for Wentworth, there are a lot of parents who might be skeptical about the appointment dates. So just wondering if someone from leadership would be coming to kind of explain this process a little bit in more detail. Because I think that was very beneficial for the community to hear.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think Kelly could come, we can invite Kelly back to our next meeting? That would be the second reading. So before that.
I can check.
Yeah, see if she's available. What I was referring to is, we discussed at length the communication around appointment dates and times and getting that out in a more timely manner to families so that they can plan, have some ease with planning with that, because those days we all recognize are a little bit more difficult. But to your point, Kelly did really explain last year quite eloquently the reason we have those and how important they are for the district, for the teachers as they're planning for their students. All right, is there any other discussion on the calendar?
I was just gonna ask, so is that, I assume that's across the board for the district? It's not just certain grade levels?
The appointments?
No, the calendar.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry,
Right, so the
yes.
snow days and
Mhm.
so, I guess I just think about the younger kids in
Mm-hmm.
that sense and the burden that that also puts on the parents.
Mhm.
Just knowing I have two little ones and I think about one also when I used to teach, was in the middle of COVID and I heard from a lot of the younger, grade level teachers, in the district that I had taught at, what a challenge it was on those days. So I guess obviously it does give, I see the benefit to it and I was gonna ask if there was a survey or something set out, so I'm glad to hear that the numbers are pretty high. I guess I was just curious, were you able to see the difference in the grade levels and were you getting the support at the younger grade levels as well?
Yeah, it's definitely, from a teacher point of view, probably more challenging at the K-5 levels. You know, and having kind of like, whether you call them blizzard bags, right? Or works to like work hard to go home with kids and just have all that prepped, you know, particularly at the K-2 level. So yeah, there was a lot of questions and you know, our building leaders really went through that planning, you know, and so but there was definitely a split because then there's also those, you know, you get out to June 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, on top of you know, attendance getting pretty heavily impacted. You know, those days are tough too, you know, so it's there's nothing ideal about it. And those, you know, and you know, some of the arguments that come out of that too from staff is like, there's no, you know, you can't say a remote day is going to measure up to an in-person day, right? So, but then you also, a snow day or multiple snow days, you do lose momentum as well with, so there's, you know, there's pros and cons.
Yeah, and I was just thinking more also from the attendance standpoint, like I think my wife and I both of us work at home. But, you know, my daughter who's about to get into kindergarten next year, if they're gonna do something and both of us are like, well, we both have really important meetings, you know, from an
Yeah.
attendance standpoint. I just think, especially at those younger levels where the kids are dependent on their parents to be with them and keep them sitting there, or at least even just get the technology on. I just think that whatever we can do to support those teachers is gonna be important, even if it is only 1 or 2 days. Those are gonna be some challenging days for those teachers.
For
Yeah.
sure.
And I think that the expectation was that they would, correct me if I'm wrong, that they would actually not participate per se in a traditional full day of school in Zoom, right? The expectations at those grade levels would be very different than at maybe the middle school or the high school, where the students are a little more self-sufficient at that point.
And actually, the expectation for elementary was that it would be offline work, that they
Mhm.
wouldn't be online. And that's really related to the fact that our elementary students do not bring home their devices on a day-to-day basis. And so it would be really hard to be like, oh, the weatherman says there's snow coming, so we're gonna have you take home this device that you haven't taken home before this year, right? And so as we had been discussing it last year at this time, it was really about what is some offline work that students can do that does not require them to be online, or their parents who might be at work to have them be online if they're at a daycare or, you know, have different circumstances on that day that they're not on site.
Yeah, and if only you had a superintendent who'd made these calls the night before, it'd be a whole lot easier on everybody, right?
I think that makes a lot more sense from the kids and the parents' perspective, and I have heard of the blizzard bags. I guess the other side of the coin is then I could see the upper level teachers being like, well, what are those other teachers doing if they're not having online class? So is there some sort of expectation of those teachers to check in or what they're supposed to do if they're not formally teaching on those days?
So I believe, and again, you can help me. I believe that we had talked about having our upper level students sign into Google Classroom, and their work would also be, you know, asynchronous, if you will, that, you know, teachers would be available perhaps for an office hour time or something like that.
but that it would not be to, you know, to your question about, you know, this teacher is required to be online for 6 hours and this other teacher is just available for office hours, you know, as an elementary teacher, if you will.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think there had been some discussion about how to make it as equitable as possible.
Yeah,
for both students
that's
and
all I
staff.
was thinking about, because I
Yeah.
can, you know, you want to treat your teachers the same
Right.
way as your students, and
Yeah.
so. Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. I just wanted to make sure those conversations were being had, and, you know, that the input, I love that the input's already been taken from everybody that's involved, so.
Yeah, and then from me, I am fully in support of this. I do want to recognize that because the calendar every year changes a little bit. And when I say a little bit, it's like a day or two off, right? So the number of snow days we would use each year to get to a Friday would be different, right? So this next calendar year would be 3 snow days before we would move to remote. Next year might be 4 or 2, depending on how that calendar lays out. But I do, I would like us to get into the habit of making this an ongoing principle or an ongoing procedure that we're going to do, because I think that the back and forth is confusing for parents and for teachers. And I know that we've heard, or I've personally heard a lot of conversation that why did we do this last year and then we didn't do it again this year from parents, that's confusing to them as they try to plan out their year and their summer. So I would like us to be, if this is the direction, and it sounds like, I think I'm hearing that the temperature here is that we do go that route. I would just like us to continue that year to year. I felt like I had one more thing and I know I did have one more thing. The letter that we received that Freyla mentioned, one thing I thought was really important to note in there, a consideration that was really good to make is that remote work now with COVID, you see a lot of people either working from home or remote work, have remote work available. And that this is really the perspective from this teacher was that this is really teaching a life skill to our students, right? And that we're kind of preparing them for what the real world now looks like. And I think that's a really important consideration and a really valid perspective as we're thinking this through as well. Is there any other, go ahead. You're ready. Okay. Okay. So, I'm going to re-motion because we have that amendment. So do I have a motion to approve the first reading of the 2023-2024 proposed school calendar with the amended October early release date to be October 18th?
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? All right, perfect. It's unanimous. Thank you. All right, agenda item 8.4 is appointments. 8.4.1 is the Scarborough Middle School Winter 2 coaches.
So the coaches are just outlined in the roster here that were included in everyone's materials.
So do I have a motion to approve the Scarborough Middle School Winter 2 coaches as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? All right, it's unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 9.0 is adjournment. Do I have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor? All right, it's unanimous. Thank you so much and have a good evening.